Hey kids, I know you're getting really good at your colors. Let's see how you're doing with your letters and if you can guess what letters these engines start with. Are you ready? Do you know who these three are? This is a Shima, Ari, and Annie. Do you know what letter all three of these start with? Yeah, the letter A. This is a capital A. And this is a lowercase a. A makes the sound ah, like Ashima, Ari, Annie, and Apple. It can also make the A sound, like in train. Wow, there's a lot of engines here. Let's see if you know them all. Do you know all these engines? It's Ben and Bill, Bertie, Butch, Bash, Belle, and Bert. Do you know what all of these engines' names start with? They all start with the letter B. B makes the b sound. That's a capital B. And here's a lowercase b. B, just like ball. Here's another set of engines. We have Connor, Caitlin, another of Thomas's coaches, Clarabelle, and Cheeky Charlie. Connor, Caitlin, Clarabelle, Charlie. They may sound like they don't all start with the same letter, but they all start with the letter C. Connor, Caitlin, and Clarabelle all begin with C, but so does Charlie. The difference is the second letter of Charlie's name is H. And when C is followed by H, it makes the ch sound, like you hear in Charlie and cheese. Ch. This is a capital C, and a little c looks exactly the same, just a little smaller. Whoa, now that is a lot of engines. Den, Dart, Diesel 10, Diesel, Duncan, Daisy, Doug, Donald, Douglas, and Dash. Do you know what they all begin with? The letter D. D makes the d sound that you hear in all of these engines' names. And here comes lowercase d. D. Here are two very popular engines, Edward and Emily. Do you know what Edward and Emily start with? You guessed it, the letter E. E makes the sound you hear in Edward and Emily. Emily makes a little bit of a different sound because her name has M as the second letter. And so it kind of like the E flows into the M, and it almost sounds like it starts with the letter M. But it's Emily, Emily, Edward. Do you know who these engines are? We have Fergus, Frankie, the Flying Scotsman, Ferdinand, and Flynn, the fire engine. Do you know what letter all of these engines' names start with? Yeah, F. F makes the f sound, like you hear in all of these engines' names. And here comes a lowercase f. F. Alright, here's 3 more engines. Do you know these engines' names? We have Gordon, Gator, and in the middle that's Gina. Do they sound like they all begin with the same letter? G, G, Gordon. G, G, Gator. J, J, Gina. They sound different, but they all begin with the letter G. G can make the G, G, G sound you hear in Gordon, but it can also make the J, J, J sound you hear in Gina. This is a capital G, and this is a lowercase g. Do you know all of these engines and coaches? This is Hero, Henry, Harvey, Toby's coach, Henrietta, and Hugo. Do you know what letter all of these engines start with? Yeah, the letter H. H makes the H, H, H sound. And here is a lowercase h. Do you know this engine? This is Ivan. Ivan starts with the same letter as island, like in the island of Sodor. And it sounds just like the letter I. Island. Ivan. But I can also make the sound I, as in igloo. Hey, I see a little light in that igloo. Who's in there? Who's this engine on the left? James, that's right. And who's this on the right? Yeah, that's Jack. James and Jack both begin with the letter J. That's a capital J, and this is a lowercase j. James. Jack. Do you know who this crane is on the left? Yeah, that's Kevin. Kevin. And this on the right, what station is this? It's Knapford Station. Do Kevin and Knapford begin with the same letter? They do. They both begin with the letter K. K can make the k sound you hear in Kevin, but if a K is followed by the letter N, it makes an N sound, and the K is silent. What's that flying up through the sky? A kite. Kite also begins with letter K. Do you think it's just a K like Kevin? Or is it a KN like in Knapford Station? Kite. Kevin. Knapford. Yeah, kite belongs over here with Kevin. What about a night? Night also begins with K. Now, not the night that follows daytime, but a knight like that wears armor. Does knight start with a K like Kevin? Or does it start with a K and an N like Knapford? Great. Night belongs over here with K and N. Just like a knife. A knife also begins with the letter K, but it too starts with a K and an N, and the K is silent. Do you know these three engines? This is Mike, Millie, and Mavis. What letter do Mike, Millie, and Mavis all begin with? They all start with the letter M. M makes the M sound you hear in Mike, Millie, and Mavis. Here comes a lowercase m. Mike, Millie, and Mavis. Okay, there are 6 engines on this page, and we can see plainly that they don't all start with the same letter. But this is Norman up top, and all the other 5 on the page all together are narrow gauge engines. Narrow and Norman start with the same letter, N. N makes the n sound you hear in Norman and narrow. There's a lowercase n. Narrow. Norman. Do you know who these two are? If you know one, you know the other, because they're both named Oliver. One is an excavator, and the other one's a steam engine. Because they're both the same name, they both start with the same letter, which is O. O makes the sound you hear in Oliver. And of course a lowercase o is just a smaller circle. O can make the sound you hear in Oliver and octopus or Optimus Prime. But it can also make a sound like O, like you hear in the word robots. Actually, robots has both sounds. The first O sounds like the letter robots, and the second one sounds like the sound, like Oliver, Octopus, and Optimus Prime. Okay, we have 5 more engines here. Do you know what letter Percy, Philip, Peter Sam, Porter, and Paxton all begin with? Yeah, it's the letter P. There's a capital P. There's a lowercase p. But Philip sounds a little different than the others. When the first letter of something is P and the second letter is H, it actually makes the f sound, just like the letter F. The word phone also starts with a PH, and it makes the f sound. But the rest of these, Percy, Peter Sam, Porter, Paxton, all begin with just P. But Philip and phone begin with a PH. Alright, can you tell where Thomas is in this picture? Yeah, he's at the quarry. Quarry starts with the letter Q. That's a capital Q. And here's a lowercase q. Usually, when you see the letter Q, it's followed by the letter U, as in the word queen, or the word quick. And Q and U together make the qu sound you hear in quarry. Here's 4 more engines. Let's see if we know their names. This is Ryan, Rosie, Rheneas, and Rusty. These engines all start with the letter R. R makes the r sound you hear in all these engines' names. There's a lowercase r. Ryan, Rosie, Rheneas, and Rusty. Here's 7 more engines and Sir Topham Hatt. Sir Topham Hatt is standing on Salty, who's beside Spencer, Stanley, and Sydney in the back. And in front we see Stepney, Stephen, and Scarloey. All these engines and Sir Topham Hatt begin with the letter S. There's a capital S, and a lowercase s looks just like the capital, only smaller. S makes the s sound you hear in all of these names, and like the hiss sound you hear when you think of a snake. Alright, we see 4 more engines here. Timothy, Thomas, Toby, and Theo. They all begin with the letter T. That's a capital T, and this is a lowercase t. Timothy, Thomas, and Toby all begin with that hard T sound that T makes. Theo begins with a th sound, and that's because Theo begins with TH, and TH can make the th sound you hear in Theo and in words like thee and throw. But it gets a little confusing here because we all know Thomas also begins with a TH. But in that case, it doesn't make the TH sound we hear in Theo. It makes the T sound we hear in all these other names. Sometimes you just have to memorize it. Alright, do you know where this is? This is Ulfstead Castle. Do you know what Ulfstead begins with? It begins with the letter U. The letter U can make the U sound, but it can also make the sound you hear in Ulfstead and in one of my favorite movies, Up. Up. Alright, here we have Victor right beside a picture of Vickerstown. Can you see in that picture What letter is missing from Vickerstown? It's the letter it begins with, which is the same letter that Victor begins with, which is V. V makes the V sound we hear in Vickerstown and in Victor. There's a capital V and a lowercase v. Here we have Winston and Whiff. Do you know what letter Winston and Whiff begin with? W. Great. There's a capital W and there's a lowercase w. W makes the w sound you hear in Whiff and Winston. What is this? Oh, it's an X-ray of Thomas. We can see that he has a screw right in front of his front wheel, and oh my gosh, he has a screw behind his nose. I'm sure that doesn't feel good. This is an X-ray. An X-ray begins with the letter X. That's a capital X, and here's a lowercase x. X can make the sound X that you hear in X-ray, but it can also make a Z sound like you hear in xylophone. Alright, do you know who this is? Yeah, it's Yang Bao. Do you know what Yang Bao starts with? It starts with the letter Y. There's a capital Y, and there is a lowercase y. Y makes the sound ya you hear in Yang Bao. Ya. Yoda. And ya yo-yo. Here come some Sodor zoo cars headed towards the zoo. Oh no, they're missing a letter. What letter are they missing? It's the first letter of the word zoo. Zoo starts with Z. Great. There's a capital Z, and there is a lowercase z. Alright everybody, you did it. You made it through all the alphabet. You know your letters just as good as you know your colors. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe so you can see more of our WSGL videos.